Let's do it.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
It's one of the coolest looking bulldogs I've ever seen.
I can't read it. There's no words on it. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Welcome everybody to Unleashed.
Every time. I
The
love
intro
it.
cracks me up. How you doing, G-Man?
I'm doing good, man.
Today we
More or
are
less.
we are excited. We have the legendary Freddy Negrete, and he is you wouldn't say Hall of Fame, but a legend in the tattoo world. He's worked with Ed Hardy. He works at Shamrock now, and the author of a book, Smile Now, Cry Later, Guns, Gangs, and Tattoos, My Life in Black and Gray. And the cover of this, Freddy, is amazing.
Thank you.
Did you design it, or did the publisher do it?
Actually, my co-author and I came up with the photo, and then I did the font.
The font?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
It's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
great.
should see the picture in there of, if you scroll through G-Man, there's a picture in there of a back tattoo he did early on with the Virgin Mary, and it's incredible. How many years ago was that you did that one?
I did it in 1979.
Wow. That was way ahead of its time.
Right. And
Way ahead of its time.
and then back then we had one tattoo convention a year, and so I won Tattoo Artist of the Year with it in 1980. So, and it was like a game changer kind of tattoo. You know, it was we introduced the Chicano look with the religious art, you know, the Virgin Mary and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I had mixed two styles, the color style and the black and gray together in one tattoo. And that was much like the Japanese style. You know, Japanese style will have a colored dragon with gray water or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first attempt.
Is that it right there?
That's it.
Yeah.
By anybody to do color realism. That's a black and white picture, but
What page is that on there, G-Man? If anybody gets his book,
182.
so you go to page 183?
182.
182 is a picture of it. And yeah, maybe we'll put a picture up too online because it's amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So how old were you when you did that?
was 21.
And how long had you been tattooing at that point?
Professionally, about 2 years.
That's it?
Yeah. But
That
I've been
looks like a tattoo that somebody had been doing it like 10 years.
I know.
It's insane.
You can't
You're ahead
see
of
it,
your,
but there's
you're
a
ahead of your time.
there's a face in the lower portion of his back, and the eye on it. I mean, it looks like it's like looking at you. It's
Yeah.
crazy how
The details
detailed
insane.
it is. Yeah.
So 2 years in, how do you get to that level? What was it that you were doing to push yourself for it to be so ahead artistically?
Well, I think it was the time before that. Before I started tattooing professional, I was in Youth Authority, and I was in a program called Tamarack Program, and Tamarack Program was for hardcore YAs, you know. So when they would decide to send you to Tamarack Program, there was like no more hope left for this guy, you know.
They were writing you off. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. We were like the criminally insane, you know. And first they would send us to prison. I think that was their attempt to, you know, do a scared straight thing. You know, let's send them to prison first. So we'd go to Tracy Prison for 90 days in the K Wing, which was their lockup unit, you know, and it's all, you know, hardcore prisoner guys, you know. And then after that, we would go to this program called Tamarack. Tamarack was the oldest building being used by the state of California as an institution. It was built in the late 1800s. And it was an annex to this castle that was the first youth authority. And they made it as a lockup and a discipline area. So it was just this awesome looking place. It was all built out of granite, and all the cells had big iron doors with a little window with bars on it, and there was 2 tiers, and it was dark in there, and it was just a really creepy place. But so the staff, their policy towards us was one of leniency, like, okay, you guys don't kill each other, and we'll kind of let you do what you want. So they never searched our cells. They let us tattoo. They brought us pornography, so all of a sudden I was in probably the most unique situation ever in any California institution. Recently, one of the staff members, he saw my book and stuff like that, and he called me at Shamrock. And he goes, "I'm retired now, but I don't know if you remember me, but back in Tamarack," he goes, "those were the days, it was never, ever like that ever again. You guys were the toughest group that we ever saw in there. And somehow we all knew that you would make it as a tattoo artist." Because actually I even started tattooing some of the staff in there too, for more privileges. But we tattooed every day with these little homemade machines, so, and that was for about 2.5 years I was in there.
And so when you're tattooing with homemade, you're improvising, right? With the homemade machines and ink and that sort of thing. When you get out, is the quality of equipment make it a lot easier? Like, do you jump another level because...
Well, first of all, it's funny because these machines that we made in prison, they were rotary. They were motors that we took out of 8-track or cassette players. And so they kind of had a post on it that spun, and we attached a needle bar to it, and it made it come out. So, but now the machine of choice for just about all these young tattoo artists are rotary machines. So they took that model that we created in prison and made a professional tattoo machine out of it.
No kidding.
Really?
So, yeah. And
is that what you use still today?
I use coils, the old-fashioned ones, because I think it's better for the work that I do, the black and gray smooth shading and all. But I do use a rotary for color because the rotaries, they have no give, so they hit the skin a little bit harder. So if you can adjust your hand to it good, you can really put that color in good, and solid work really, really good. So I use rotaries, they have a good purpose, but these guys use rotaries for everything. And now they have these little cartridges, so for me, I set up like 5 or 6 different machines. It's like having 5 different brushes, and so now they have these cartridges with all the needle setups in the cartridges, and one machine, you just get a cartridge and you got 7 needles, take it out, boom, you got 3 needles, so there's a tremendous amount of ingenuity going into the tattoo world right now because of its popularity, I would guess. And but still, that machine was originated in California prison. So when I did get out, though, I made the switch. It was really easy for me. I like the professional machines, the coils. I was so eager to be a professional tattoo artist. So when they told, Ed Hardy told me, you're going to have to make this switch. And I was like, yes, let's do it,
So how do you go from coming out of prison to working for Ed Hardy?
So when I got out, I immediately set up shop in my apartment, and everybody wanted these tattoos, and starting with all my homeboys, but I paroled to a different neighborhood. So there was a bunch of other people, that I was tattooing, and they would come to me and they'd say, "Hey dude, there's a tattoo shop in East LA that's doing prison style work." And see, that was the thing. Everybody wanted their tattoos to look like they were done in prison, because that's the only place that you could get them back then, So when I got out and I was all covered with tattoos, people were like, "Oh, he's been to prison, and prison is tough, so he's got to be a tough guy to survive prison." So it just added to your machismo thing, as a gang member. So,
were you in a gang at that time?
Yeah. And we can go into that in a little bit later, but it's all in the book.
That's a whole other subject, obviously.
So anyways, this tattoo shop, this guy, Good Time Charlie and Jack Rudy, they recognized that all these people wanted to get tattoos in East LA. And when they set up shop there, they found out they don't want color. So for Charlie, it was like, that's half the tattoo, you know? So, but for Jack, you know, Jack grew up among Chicanos and a neighborhood and everything. So, and he knew the culture and he knew the style that people wanted. So he did really beautiful tattoos and they looked like they were done in prison, you know? So people would come to me and show me their tattoos from this tattoo shop. So I would, you know, tell them, okay, after I do a tattoo, go over there and show Weddle, you know, at Good Time Charlie's. So there was like a back and forth. Finally,
Weddle is whitey, right?
Yeah.
So the gringo like me.
Yeah.
Oh, you know how many times I've been called Weddle in my life?
Oh my God.
And that Weddle was, you know, Jack Rudy. He was white, but he grew up he was adopted by Mexican parents, and he was raised over there by the airport area. Ochentas, that was a Mexican neighborhood. So he knew the culture, but he was white, you know, and so everybody called him Weddle. So anyways, they came to me and they said, hey, this guy, you know, Weddle wants to talk to you, you know. So I thought, maybe they'll give me a job, you know. So I went in there with my folder of art and I took a couple people that I tattooed. And, you know, when I met Weddle, you know, we both showed each other a lot of respect. We got along really well. He was impressed with my work. And then I looked at the wall, you know, and I saw some of my designs that were on their wall, you know, in the flash. And I was like, hey, dude, I drew that. And see, the thing is, when I was in Youth Authority, I worked in the print shop. And we used to make stationery paper for people to write home on. And in the corner, I would put one of my tattoo designs, you know. And so, and we made thousands of designs, copies of these and mailed them to all the prisons, you know. So those designs were everywhere, you know. And
so then they end up on the wall in tattoo shops.
At the tattoo shop.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he's like, you know what? Everybody tells me their cousin or their uncle or so-and-so in prison drew that, you know. And I go, I know, but I did do it. And I had the original in my folder of art, you know, and I showed him. So him and I got along really well. He didn't offer me the job, which I was hoping for. And I think largely because, you know, back then, at that time, the tattoo shops and tattooing was controlled by bikers, pretty much, our biker types. You know, there was no Latinos in the industry. And they weren't about to give, you know, cholo gangster a job as a tattoo artist, you know. And Good Time Charlie, him and I became really good friends, you know, later. But Good Time Charlie, he gave me the cold shoulder. He didn't even come to meet me or shake my hand or anything. And the other biker guys there, you know, so I was like, and I could see they had an uneasy relationship with the Hispanic community that they were in East LA. You know, the work areas had bars, you know, and in order to get in there, it was an electric gate, you know, so that says the relationship was uneasy. And these cholo gangsters are crazy, you know, so, you know, and you had to work with just them. It's tough. So anyways, I went back to do my thing, you know, and not long after that, somebody came and said, hey, Weddle wants to go to the shop. They want to give you a job. And I was like, whoa. So what had happened was Good Time Charlie became a Christian and he quit tattooing. And so Ed Hardy had discovered these guys at a tattoo convention and was amazed with this new style of black and gray. He called it black and gray realism. So when Good Time Charlie quit and he wanted to sell the shop, Ed Hardy didn't want it to fall into the wrong hands. And so he bought the shop. And Ed Hardy was not your biker type. He's really a genius. You know, he's an educated man, incredible artist. And so he was like, Jack told him about me and he goes, well, we got to get that guy in here because he can relate to these people, you know?
So a complete change in business model.
Totally. Totally.
kind of really embracing the talent instead of like controlling the race separation.
Right. And not caring about the race separation, you know,
It's about the art.
it's about the art. And for Ed, it was more than just about the art. It was the fact that that's where I was from, and I knew the culture and I knew the art, and I actually learned in prison, you know. So
Give the people what they want, right?
yes,
How long between the time you first met Guido and then when he offered you the job?
yeah, just a couple of months.
Oh, so it's pretty quick.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah. So, I mean, I was surprised, you know, but I'm glad that I, you know, was able to stay out because, you know, not much had changed for me. You know, I tattooed out of my apartment and stuff, but I was still a gangster and I still had gangsters all around. And
Is that how you were making your money, is being a gangster?
no, I made a little money like that. But, and then, you know, my girl had some money, you know, she worked, you know, so that's kind of how we do that too. And then I made a little money doing tattoos. And,
How much would you charge for a tattoo back then?
when I was tattooing out of my apartment, I do a good sized tattoo for like $15.
Jeez.
15,
Were you just
$20.
excited to do it?
I didn't really even know what to charge, you know, it's so,
So when
$20 was a lot in the 70s.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah.
That's about what $100 is now, you know?
What did so when you go in and you get the job, what do you learn about the business and charging? What were they charging for a tattoo there?
So there, what I was doing for like $15-$20 was like $60-$80. But Ed Hardy was already, you know, he had his private studio in San Francisco, his, you know, a wealthy clientele, because the people that I met were all business owners and professionals, lawyers, entertainers, and that you'd never know had a tattoo, but would be covered with tattoos. A lot of them were masochists, you know, and
Oh, they just like the pain?
yeah,
Really?
So it wasn't about the art, it was about the pain?
it was about both.
Wow. Jeez.
But it was the endorphins more than anything else?
I think so. I mean, you know, I didn't understand it when Ed described it to me, you know, like, and I remember when we first opened up Tattoo Land and we built it, you know, all our medical supplies and everything were donated by this man that owned a medical supply company, and he came and he's like, and he looked very, you know, like upright businessman, you know, in Chicano slang, it'd be a ruco. He looked like a ruco to me, you know, like a professional guy, you know, and anyway, so Ed goes, you know, show Freddy your tattoos. So we went in the back room and he just stripped naked and he was covered everywhere. I mean, he even opened his butt cheeks, you know, and he had these little faces, you know, flying out of his ass and just.
Really? Did you think that was funny?
Yeah, I did. I was like, oh, I may have seen too much, you know.
He's like, I've been in prison and I haven't seen that. That's Gary's next tattoo.
Oh,
actually,
my
I was gonna
God.
ask you about that. So what do you learn what things did you learn when you go from doing it at home about the separation between artist and business and the money part and the mindset to that?
Well, first of all, as far as the art goes, you know, it was a kind of amazing for me. I mean, these people these days have to do long apprenticeships, you know. So Jack told me, look, Ed wants you to do a 2-week apprenticeship, you know, to learn the switch, you know. But my first day, I did a tattoo on myself with the professional machine, and it came out really good, and I adjusted to that machine really well, you know. And the next day, well, actually, these were 2 days before I got the job. I had to show him I could tattoo.
Where did you do that tattoo?
On my leg.
And do you still have it?
Yes. Yeah.
So every time you look at that, does it remind you of
Yeah,
that
it does.
change in life?
Yeah.
That trajectory?
It was one of those points in my life. It was a huge change.
That's
you know,
awesome.
It means so much, you know. So then I brought a friend the next day. He wanted me to tattoo somebody else. This is before I got the job, right? So I came down, I did a tattoo on myself. The next day I brought this guy. And one of the things in prison, we didn't always have stencils. And so, but we had a bunch of them, you know. But I had learned ways to do the tattoo without having any stencil at all.
So like freehand, is that what you would say?
I think it'd be more like freestyle.
Freestyle?
Yeah. Because freehand is when you draw it on with a pen first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So this I would just take off with the machine. So I had a way where I'd start with a girl's eye and I'd know exactly where to put the other eye and then where to put the nose and all, you know what I mean? So I did one of those, you know, for him, and he's like, "Oh, you're hired," because tattooing without a stencil was unheard of.
2-week apprenticeship turned into 2 days?
No. So that's when he gave me the job. So the next day I was going to start my apprenticeship, but the other biker guy that was there, he never said hi to me or anything. He just looked at me with contempt whenever I felt like he was mad dogging me, but you know, Chicano gangsters always think everybody's mad dog, you know? So anyways, he quit the next day that I started. So
all of a sudden they needed somebody to do tattoos.
Right away. So I started the next day. So, and then, it was a really big change for me because, you know, we weren't at a loss for customers because when we got to work, there was a line of people waiting and we would just tattoo straight the whole time, you know?
So how many would you do a day usually?
Like 4, 5, 6 tattoos, depending on the size, you know? But I mean, and we'd start, you know, both Jack and I started at 6, but we would tattoo till 5 a.m.
Jeez.
Sleep all day the next day, go to work, tattoo all night.
And what are you making at that point percentage wise? Is it like half or what do you get?
60-40.
So you get 60?
Mm-hmm. So I was bringing home about $200, maybe $300 a night.
Wow.
Back when if you were making $300 a week, you had a great job.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So that's life-changing money.
Yes.
And you're that young. Does it go to your head or are you working so hard? Like for me, when I started making money, I didn't have time to spend the money because I was like, oh, I got to make more money. Like I just wanted to work harder. I wasn't that, I never really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I started really liking the money, but there was a lot of partying involved. You know,
did that affect your work?
I don't know if it did, if I did the wrong thing. And I would learn, somebody was telling me, hey, have you tried a lovely, you know? And, what's a lovely? You know, it's like PCP and weed mixed together. And I remember, so I smoked it for the first time and just driving to work, you know, I felt like I was not going anywhere. It was the worst thing. And when I got to work, I just couldn't tattoo. And then, you know, and I was in the back, you know, paranoid and stressing and, you know, I'm like freaking out, you know, this stuff is, and then I told my customer, I was like, you know what, I smoked some bad shit, you know, and I can't do this right now. And he was like, yes, you can. Come on. Yes, you can. He didn't care if I was fucked up or not, you know? So I was like, all right, sit down. Let's do it. I can't remember how the tattoo came out, but just the fact that he had so much confidence in me, I felt a little bit better and I did it, but I knew better that I knew that, PCP was not going to be my drug of choice.
Yeah.
We got to try that again.
I did that this morning. You couldn't tell.
I've never tried anything.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, that stuff always cracks me up. So what did you learn from Ed Hardy about because there's so much that goes into the tattoo thing. Like you're a counselor, a psychologist. You have to make people feel comfortable. Then you also have to, the thing that always amazes me about tattoo artists is somebody comes in and they have an idea. And then you have to take that idea and make it into something that they like. And there's a lot of psychology going on there. So what was the basic philosophy at that young age that you learned about all of those different angles of the business?
But I think at that, at that time, and I love that aspect of the business. I love hearing somebody's idea and seeing all their pictures and then putting it together for them, and showing them what's best.
Especially probably if it represents a memory, right?
Yeah, whatever's special to them. That's my favorite part of the job is to read that person, try to understand what they see, and then make it a reality for them. Back then, it was more. These people just wanted these tattoos and wanted that style. We had more people that came in and just said, "Do whatever you want." I mean, like practically everybody. So that was fun too, So, and Jack and I, we worked, next to each other, and we would sit there and create these elaborate tattoos, just drawing stuff out of our minds, and just doing whatever we wanted to, So, what I learned from Ed, I learned so much from him because when I finally did meet him, and so I guess I had been working already about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I was taking pictures of Polaroids of everything I was doing. And Jack Rudy was like, okay, Ed's going to come down to finally meet you. And I go, what's his work like? Cause no social media or anything. There was no way to see what his work was like. And Jack was like, it's that color shit, Jack hated color,
Yeah. Isn't there a prison element to his stuff? But it's more, how would you describe it?
Ed Hardy?
Yeah. Is it more sailor?
No. Well, let me say, when he finally came and I was so happy to meet him, and then I showed him, my little Polaroids of what I've been doing. He's like, this is so amazing. He's so turned on to it. And he goes, here's some of the stuff that I've been doing, And then it was back piece after back piece after full body coverage. And I was like, oh my God. And I had never seen Japanese style. Ed Hardy introduced it to America, really, the Japanese style. And so much of it was Japanese, style. And, but he was taking the black and gray and mixing it in with his color pieces. But I mean, we did like my arm, a tattoo here. Oh, I got a space filled in with that, kind of what they're doing today, but to see the whole body as a whole canvas was just so amazing to me. And I was looking at Jack like, color shit. Come on, these are masterpieces. Ed Hardy was amazing. And not only that, he was just so smart, so he's going, we're going to put, his main thing was he wanted the world to see tattooing as a form of art because it wasn't. And there was a real argument because I would show people my tattoos and they go, yeah, but it's not art. That's not art. People
What?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't get that.
It's a high form of art, just like graffiti. I mean, some of the best artists are tattoo artists.
Right. Graffiti wasn't an art back then either.
No.
But it is.
But yeah, it is. But I mean, so there was a real argument as to whether or not tattooing was an art form. And so Ed Hardy's objective was to get the world to see that tattooing is a beautiful form of art and it should be looked at as art. Mm-hmm. And for him, our black and gray realism was another level, to put out there to show people, how artistic, tattooing could be. So, I remember when he was, he's going, okay, Jack called it single needle or fine line because he invented the single needle for the professional tattoo machine. And I called it joint style, so because to me it came from prison, and it should be, so that was my name for it. Jack's name was single needle. Ed Hardy's like, no. We're going to call it black and gray realism,
So he's giving a name to it that transcends a little bit.
He branded it, right?
Yeah.
He branded it. Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing he did with, the tattooing that was being done at the time, which we now call traditional style, he named it traditional style. So Ed Hardy was like this master at the helm, just.
So was he in a way a master marketer?
Yes, very much so. Well, he's a millionaire now. So, and
he should be more than a millionaire, I think.
He's a multimillionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire or not, but he was a genius. But so the way he got it out there was he was with publishing, his publishing company called Hardy Marks Publications, and his very first book came out before I even started tattooing. It was called The Tattooist, and it was some of his full back pieces and stuff like that. And the text was all about the tattooist being an artist and what kind of artist he was. It was an amazing book. But then he came out with the Tattoo Times. Those books that he published back then are like holy books to tattoo artists today. Every shop has
Well, even
a
back then, wouldn't those be in like, they would spread across the country, right? So people in tattoo shops in like Chicago would be trying to copy what you guys are doing here, right?
Exactly.
Because the fact that he was publishing it, it gave a young tattoo artist in the middle America where they didn't have access to, because let's face it, here in New York's pop culture, right?
Right.
And so everything, a lot of great art and lifestyle starts here, or it spreads here. That's what he was doing, is he was inspiring the whole tattoo community across the country, right?
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
Weren't people then copying what you guys were doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
People started
changed the styles and it elevated the art form. They started taking it more serious.
And that was genius. That's the genius of Ed Hardy, So he elevated the style and the technique. One of his customers, Ed Hardy, had all the secrets. Back in the day, in the early 70s, you had two colors, red and green. And then they came out with yellow and brown, but it was hard to find the right pigments that could be used for tattooing, and nobody knew about that stuff. But Sailor Jerry and Ed Hardy did, and we had so many colors and nobody else had them. And I remember the day when he goes, Freddy, he came to LA and he's like, I got a new color. And he goes, it's called magenta.
So is he making those himself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so all these secrets that he had, this doctor that he did this big tattoo on, his name was Dr. Lemus. And Dr. Lemus was a dermatologist, and he wanted to use Ed Hardy's tattoo technique to solve pigmentation problems and scars, things like that. And he paid a lot of money, but Ed sold him all these tattoo secrets, as far as needle setups and machine types and color codes, the codes that you need to get the right colors. And then Dr. Lemus felt like the whole tattoo world should have these secrets, and he published them, in a journal, So not only did they have what was being done by the best artists by way of Ed Hardy's publications, Dr. Lemus gave the tattoo world the tools and the technique and the
technology.
Technology that they needed to do this type of work.
And was he okay with him sharing that? He was mad?
Yes. The tattoo secrets, were well kept. Nowadays, there's this general sharing, of
it's more of a
information.
community.
Yeah, and everybody loves each other and, respects each other, It wasn't like that back then, It was very cutthroat. Everybody hated each other, and everybody wanted to keep their secrets, to themselves. And
What were the biggest secrets in that?
I think probably the color codes.
The color codes?
Yeah. To be able to get the right pigments that that could be, what do they call it? Grilled or whatever.
Reproduced?
What's that called? Like a machine that crushes it down into fine powder.
Oh,
mill.
A mill.
Yeah. So the right pigments that were safe for the skin that could be milled down into a fine powder, and what to use to mix that powder, to make a workable ink or pigment that would go into the skin,
So Ed Hardy comes down from San Francisco, and you have your Polaroids, and he's showing you his work. What advice did he give you after he saw your work? And what did you feel like in that moment?
When I saw his work, I immediately said to myself, and Jack taught me a lot, but, we both knew little, and I felt like, I need to learn. And it wasn't long after that I talked to Ed, and I told him, Ed, I just think you're the most amazing tattoo artist I've ever seen. And I would really like to learn from you, and I just want to be your student. I just want you to be my mentor, and I'll do whatever you ask, So, so then I started making trips to San Francisco, and I'd stay up there for a week or so, and he let me stay at his house. I'd go with him every day to a realistic tattoo studio. He would set up clients for me, to do my black and gray stuff. And I would watch him and Bob Roberts, work. And I did, there's artwork that I did for Ed in my book there. I designed sheets of flash that were really different, for that time period, that he had at his realistic tattoo studio. And I was always doing something. So when we'd go to realistic and I'd tattoo and I'd learn from him, then we'd go back to his house, eat dinner, and I would go up to the room and I would just draw, so I was really into it, as far as, the business aspect of it, I always felt like all that was, beyond me.
Really? Do you feel that way today?
No. Oh, no, not today. Back then,
You just wanted to be an artist?
Because I saw such an efficient and intelligent man. We'd wake up in the morning, we'd jump in his car and he'd go to this printer and he'd go to that place and he'd get this done and that done. Then we go to the shop and he, his amazing clientele, these fantastic people, and just, I guess it was so much to see. I just never thought that I could be like that,
Was there a big difference between the lifestyle you led and his lifestyle? Like if you were out, smoking weed and drinking, when you stayed at his house for a week, was he like, he was probably more about the work, or did he party?
Ed Hardy's had his party times, too. And back then it was the 70s. So, it was called the rich man's high, cocaine.
Yeah.
And only rich people could afford it, I guess. So he had his run-ins with that and stuff. But from what I always saw, he was just an efficient man with a clear vision and the energy and the know-how to make these things happen,
And how much of that rubbed off on you?
Back then, I don't think any of it.
No?
I just didn't see myself as being able to be like that, and
so is it a self-image thing, or what is it?
But it's one of those things that's embedded in you. And, so a lot of the projects and things that I've done throughout my life, from music, now my art shows and all the different things, I can always remember the example that he set for me. And I remember it clearly, and the way I tattoo, and I remember, usually a tattoo artist, he'll be doing his tattoo and then he'll take a break or go smoke a cigarette or whatever, and the person's sitting in the chair, you know, like, where's my artist? Or what, you know, so like, I remember Ed, he drilled it into my head. It's like, you know, don't forget this hurts. So you sit down and you get the tattoo finished. You don't need breaks. Take a break when you're done. You know, think about the person.
Wow.
You know? Take your time and do your best, but think about the fact that you're working on a person and it hurts. Mm-hmm. And you know, things like that stuck with me, you know. So now when I sit down and tattoo, I just, unless I have to get up to go to the bathroom or something like that, you know, I sit down and I get the person's tattoo done. You know, I don't talk to other people. I'm not involved in any other, you know, I try to make it seem like this person is paying me $200 an hour. So he's getting my full undivided attention, you know, and my full focus, you know, so, and that's something that I learned from him. And it's something that it's hard to, you know, teach other people that, you know, but I've tried.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of our amazing 2-part conversation with tattoo forefather and legend Freddy Negrete. Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into the business components of tattoo artistry.